All right, today we're going to crack open the digital toolbox of, well, the good guys, the ethical hackers. We're going to look at the essential software they use, not to break the internet, but to actually build a stronger, safer one for all of us.
You know, it's a pretty fascinating question, isn't it? And it gets right to the heart of what ethical hacking is all about. It's this idea, this almost paradoxical idea, that to build a system that's truly secure, you first have to master all the ways it can be broken. So, what do we actually call this? Well, the professional term is penetration testing, or you'll hear it called pen testing. It's all about finding security weaknesses in applications. But, and this is the most important part, in a totally controlled way. This is not about just poking around on live websites. Okay, so if you can't practice on live websites, where do you go? Well, you go to the gym, a digital gym. These are web applications that are deliberately vulnerable, designed from the ground up to be a safe, legal training ground for anyone learning cybersecurity. And this slide, it really lays out why these digital gyms are so absolutely crucial. Trying your skills on a live system? Don't do it. It's illegal, it's super risky, and you can cause real harm to real people. But using one of these purpose-built vulnerable apps, it's the complete opposite. It's a legal, safe sandbox where the entire goal is just to learn. Let's look at a classic example. If you're just starting out, you will almost certainly run into DVWA, which stands for Damn Vulnerable Web Application. The name really says it all, doesn't it? It's one of the most popular platforms for just getting your hands dirty with web security. So DVWA is built on a pretty classic tech stack, and it covers all the greatest hits of web vulnerabilities. We're talking stuff like SQL injection, where you can trick a database into spilling its secrets, or cross-site scripting. But its killer feature, really, is the adjustable security levels. This lets you start on low to see how a vulnerability works, then you can crank it up to high to see how modern defenses try to stop it. You can literally dial the difficulty from low all the way to impossible. It's just a perfect training ground. But, technology moves on. For a more modern option, let's take a look at the OWASP Juice Shop. If DVWA is kind of like the classic weight room, Juice Shop is the shiny, high-tech, modern training facility. What makes Juice Shop so cool and so relevant is that it's built with modern tech, like Angular, so you're practicing on something that looks a lot more like today's web. Plus, it's gamified. There's a scoreboard, a bunch of challenges. It just makes learning way more engaging. And it's all based on the OWASP Top 10, which is the industry standard list of the most critical security risks out there. So the big takeaway here is that there's a specialized digital gym for pretty much any workout you want. You've got DVWA for the fundamentals, Juice Shop for the modern web, and even apps like Vulnerable WordPress if you want to practice on specific platforms like content management systems. Okay, so we've spent some time in the gym, we're practicing our techniques. But how do we see what's actually happening under the hood? To see the results of our tests, we need a totally different kind of tool. Think of it like a microscope for our networks. And that tool is Wireshark. This quote from the Wireshark user guide just puts it perfectly. It's not a tool that changes anything on the network. It's a measuring device. It lets you peer inside the digital conversations that are happening every single millisecond and see exactly what's being said. And here it is. This is what you see when you open up Wireshark. Now I know, at first glance, all these numbers and codes can look a little intimidating, but it's all broken down pretty logically. Up top, you've got a list of all the individual data packets just scrolling by in real time. In the middle, you get a detailed breakdown of any packet you click on, and down at the bottom, you have the raw data itself. It's an incredibly powerful window into your network. So, let's get practical. How does someone actually use this thing to go from a giant flood of data to a single useful insight? Well, it all comes down to a clear, methodical process. The workflow is pretty straightforward, really. First, you just capture the data that's flying across the network. Then, and this is probably the most important part, you use these really powerful filters to zero in on only the packets you care about. This is how you find that needle in the digital haystack. After that, you can dissect the protocols to understand the conversation, and finally, you can search for very, very specific pieces of information. That middle pane there shows how Wireshark takes the raw data from the bottom and translates it into a human-readable, layered format. You can see the Ethernet layer, the IP layer, the TCP layer, all just neatly organized. It's literally like peeling back the layers of an onion to get to the core of what's going on. So we have our digital gym for practice and our network microscope for analysis.
The real magic happens when you put these two together. They're really two sides of the same cybersecurity coin. So let's just imagine a scenario, right? An ethical hacker is using a practice app to test a cross-site scripting attack, trying to inject some malicious code into a web page. They've crafted their code, they've injected it into the vulnerable app, all inside that safe, controlled training environment. And here's the payoff. They then fire up Wireshark to watch the network traffic, and by analyzing the packets, they can see exactly how their malicious script was sent, how it was hidden inside normal web traffic, and they can confirm that the attack actually worked the way they expected it to. They practice the move, and then they use the microscope to study the result. So why does any of this matter outside the world of cybersecurity pros? Well, because the skills that are sharpened with these tools are what stand between a secure online experience for all of us and a really catastrophic data breach. And just think about the scale of the challenge here. A single one of these practice apps can have over 100 different web vulnerabilities built into it. 100. That just shows you the size of the training ground needed to prepare defenders for the sheer variety of threats they're going to face out in the real world. And that really brings us to the final crucial question. These tools, the digital gems and the network microscopes, they're fundamental. But tools are only ever as good as the people who use them. So as we rely more and more on our digital world, the real question is, who's going to step up to master these tools and build the next generation of defenses to keep us all safe?